I always said there's three ways to enlightenment. The first way to enlightenment, I call enlightenment through suffering. And enlightenment through suffering is, I am going to go through this experience. I can think of it from drinking, for example. And then I'm going to get through it, and then I'm going to look back on it. And as I look back on it, I'm going to realize after 10 years or so the benefit that I had in that, and I am going to grow from having suffered. It's enlightenment through suffering, which is not anything I recommend, but it's mostly the way that most people take. So we go through these storms and all of these difficulties and all of the stuff that we have to go through, and then we get to a place where we look back on it and we say, now I know why I had to go through that. You know? Now I know why I went through those addictions. Now I know why I went through those horrible relationship things, and I was always trying to be right and not being able to work it out. Now I know why I had to go through the poverty. And now I know why the accident came about. Now I know why the fire that destroyed this. I know why the illness came about. But I don't do it by what I call enlightenment through suffering any longer. I go a different direction now. And the direction that I go is the next level of enlightenment. And the next level of enlightenment is, while you are going through the storm, instead of saying, someday I will realize why I had to go through this, and I'll look back on it, and I will benefit from it. Instead of that, what I do is say, what's the lesson in this for me right now? What is it that I've attracted? Why have I attracted this into my life again? And I am going to get the lesson without having to go through a long period of suffering in order to understand it and explain it. So that's the second level, and that's one I would recommend to you as you start coming back to your place of origin, as you begin to reconnect to your source. I think that there is a way, there is a possibility of going through the things that we are told we're supposed to suffer from and not suffer at all. I think there's a way. I don't say that I'm there. And when you really get good at getting into the moment and being here now, as Ram Dass says, living from this moment and being just completely engulfed in it, whatever it is that your pain is, whatever you're thinking about, whatever, you know, there's a saying that says, I'm an old man and I've had many troubles, most of which have never happened. And most of the troubles and the suffering and the things that they are really thoughts, that all this suffering that you went through, you know, that it was all thoughts. It was just all thought. That we become what we think about, whether we want it or not. I mean, that's really the beauty of the work of Esther and Jerry Hicks and Abraham, is the power of our thoughts. This whole idea of reconfiguring our way of processing things in such a way that we don't have to suffer. Because I'm going to go to a third point. I haven't even gotten to the third one yet. Everybody has a story. Everybody has something that that takes place that they wish hadn't taken place. We still have within us the capacity, as Abraham often says, you know, my not eating because there are children starving in Africa is not going to feed one child. My feeling guilty, like you can't get depressed enough to undepress another person. You can't get sad enough to make somebody else happy. But you can present yourself as a person who is aligned with Source in such a way that you are a God-realized soul, that when you are around a depressed person or a starving person, you give them hope. And that's what we need, is people who have a sense of hope and can elevate themselves because of the example. The third way to enlightenment, and that is what I call enlightenment by getting out in front of it and stopping it before it gets to you. anticipating it. As you get to a level of awareness that is so aligned with God, where you're thinking from a spiritual way at all times, seeing the unfolding of God, practicing reverence for life, the things I'll be speaking about when I speak about this meeting phase. As you get and begin to start to elevate your consciousness, what happens as you begin to elevate this, your intuitive nature begins to take over, and you begin to attract the right people and the right events and the right circumstances in your life. They just show up. And the right people, like when I decided to give up alcohol, when I decided to give up experimenting with certain drugs in my life, I remember still being tempted to go back to it. But as I was changing my conception of who I am, my concept of myself as a person, I would attempt to go back. I would find that the person that I was supposed to get the drugs from didn't show up. That it was like there was one more obstacle put between me and getting it, something that I didn't want to have anymore. Because addiction is nothing more than you never get enough of what you don't want. You never get enough of what you despise. And instead of my just going and making it easier, there'd be one more step, and then there'd be another step, and then I'd have to pause. And before you know it, it would be over. The temptation would be gone. And the right people would begin to show up. That's an extreme example. So now you can see it coming. And you get out in front of these things that used to cause you suffering, that you used to have to deal with in the present moment. And now, when they're on their way, you can deflect them. You can make them go away. These are principles that I don't think have to be that complicated. Principles that are characteristic of those who take the road less traveled, who are on the uncrowded mile. And here they are. If you can live them and practice them and work on them or help others to do so, perhaps we can collectively begin to counterbalance some of the negativity of those who can't make the distinction between falsehood and truth. Have a mind that is open to everything, attached nowhere. Go through life with an idea that anything is possible. Don't die with your music still in you. Listen to the voices you hear, regardless of what others may say. Remember, you can never give away what you don't have, so if you're looking for love, don't look in all the wrong places. Look inside, give it away, and you'll attract it into your life. Embrace silence. Know that God's one and only voice is silent, and all of your creativity and all that you are destined to be able to do here when you showed up with this heroic mission is in the void. It's in the silence, and it will come out of that silence. Give up your personal history. Don't be attached to all that has happened in the past. It's just a wake. It's just a trail that is left behind. And the wake can never drive the boat. Remind yourself always that whatever problems you have, you can't solve them with the same mind that created it. Rewrite your agreement with reality. Make anything up your possibility. Rid yourself of all of those resentments that you justify. There are no justifiable resentments. They will all destroy you. Treat yourself as if you already were what you would really like to become. Act it out. See yourself as having abundance. See yourself as being healthy. See yourself as being happy. See yourself playing that trumpet, and you won't be able to do anything else. Treasure your divinity. God doesn't make any junk. And finally, remind yourself that to be wise is to avoid all thoughts which weaken you. And every thought you have does one or the other, will either weaken or strengthen you. I think of those who don't recognize this great power, this force that is in everything and everyone. that opens the flowers and allows the butterflies to flap their wings, and who thinks it's all some great big accident. I love this story of the Buddha. And the Buddha is traveling, and everywhere he travels, he encounters criticism and hate and disrespect from all of these people who have done nothing but choose to see if they can bring him down. And always he responds with peace. Always he responds with love. And after 3 or 4 days of seeing these people continuously harassing him and ridiculing him and finding fault with him and being ugly and so on, his devotees say, how can you do that? After 3 days of nothing but receiving that kind of energy, you still always have love. And the Buddha answered his question with a question. He said, if someone offers you a gift and you do not accept that gift, to whom does the gift belong? And what he's saying is, if someone offers you a gift of their negativity, of their lower energy, of their criticism, of their hatred or whatever, and you simply don't accept it, who owns it? And if they own it and it's theirs, why would you allow yourself to be upset, depressed, stressed, hurt by something that is owned elsewhere? That's all you have to remind yourself of. And you'd be surprised. You know, it's a good thing to work on. It's a good thing to practice, especially if you have kids, because, boy, they give you so many opportunities to do this, where you can work at seeing if you can change that energy around, if you can make it go from low to high. Just see if you can raise it just ever so slightly. All of you instinctively know how to do it, because you're born with that quality. It's just that we've lost it when we took on the ego. Thank you, and God bless you.
The stewardess was standing there, and she said, oh, no. Oh, no. She knew who I was. I had been talking to her. She said, this is what I dread. I said, what's the matter? She said, there's 176 people on this plane. Every one of them is going to say something nasty to me when they get off the plane. They're going to blame me, they're going to blame the airline, and they're going to... I said, but you don't have to let that in. She said, what are you talking about? I said, well, you've got 2 packages, 2 suits that are protecting you from anybody coming to you with that disharmony. She said, what do you mean? I said, well, you got your uniform. I said, that's one package, and that's over the other package, which is your body, and then both of those are protecting or covering who you really are, which is how you choose to process all of this and how you choose to think and who you really are. I said, each person that comes up by you and says something negative or nasty, you can just let that only be a message to your uniform, to your package. That's not me, and you can remind yourself, they're not talking to me. They can't get to me with that stuff. They can't have that. I don't let anybody come to me unless they come with love or harmony to who I really am. So you can just say, well, I'm very sorry, and have a good... And it's like, and you say, well, they didn't get to me, and they didn't get to me. They're not reaching me with that. And sure enough, she stood there and she watched as 176 people got off, and I'd say 150 of them said something nasty to her on the way out. And each time she just sort of smiled and said, yes, well, it'll be 2 hours. And she gave them instructions on where to go. And when it was all done, she sat down next to me. She said, that was fantastic. It's the first time that we've ever had a circumstance like this where I didn't let it bother me. I said, you don't have to let that stuff into your life. And it's just like in the meditation in the field. When those thoughts start impinging on the field, the pastel that you have created, you don't have to let them in. They bounce. I do it all the time. When I'm driving, and if anybody gives me... I don't take any of that inside. I just say, oh, that's them, and that's how they're reacting to my form. Having a quiet mind, in a practical sense, is really understanding that what I'm talking about is not just for discussion. It's for application. If you're the kind of person who has your mind filled with 10 different things that you have to do, and that is producing anxiety, stress, ulcers, colds, backaches, headaches, cramps, runny noses, all of the kinds of physical reactions and manifestations of that kind of thinking, then you have to look at how can you just get a blank mind, or how can you get a quiet mind? How can you just understand that, supposing you're thinking about, you got to get to work, you've got this report you got to get out, you got to get your taxes done, you got to stop and get some diapers on the way home. Now the kids need to have bananas, and they've got dance lessons I've got to get them to. An endless catalog of activities. By using your mind to do that, and to occupy it all the time, none of that is going to get done. See, all of that is going to get done. Regardless, if you're the kind of person who does those things, it's going to get done. The question is, how do you use your present moments? See, anytime you use up your present moment, or any time that you are thinking anxious thoughts, you're denying the present. You're using up the present moment instead of using it up in a productive, peaceful, serene, calm way. You are somehow believing that you can't get through this day or this moment any other way, that if I don't think about it and worry about it and be anxious about it. But the fact is, it's going to get done. Your taxes are going to get done. You're not going to jail. You're not the kind of person who's going to opt to just simply not do your taxes. You're going to get the diapers. You're going to get the report done. All of that you're going to get done. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in the position that you're in. You would be doing something else, all right? So if you know that it's going to get done, the question is, what's the most efficient and effective and peaceful way to get things done? I use the analogy often of when you're in a hurry, like when your body is in a hurry. That's when you're least effective. And that's when you always drop something. You'll drop the keys, and then you'll start sweating. And then when you start sweating, you find yourself getting more upset. You'll forget something. And you'll walk out the door, and you'll slam the door, and you left the key on the inside. Now you don't have a key. I've talked about when you take a shower. If you rush through a shower because you only have 5 minutes to take a shower, and you finish and you take your shower and then you dry yourself off, you didn't need to take a shower because you're already dirty again. I mean, you're already sweating. You can take the same 5 minutes and take a shower, if that's all you have. And you can do it peacefully. The same 5 minutes. You can push all of the other stuff out and you can just relax. And if you've got 3 minutes, instead of rushing through it, you can just let the water pour. You can experience the water. You can wash your body. You can dry it all off. And when you finish, you're not sweating. And you had the same amount of time. The nervousness and all of that comes from the way that you decide to process. Now, in the physical world, you understand that if you hurry and rush and are filled with 1,000 different activities, that you have decreased your efficiency. Why isn't the same thing true in the mental world, in your mind? If you are filling your mind with all of the things that you have to do, and you're worried about all of those things and get yourself all consumed with them, then you're still going to be less efficient, less effective, and you're still going to be cluttered. At a moment like that, you put on a tape. If you're going to drive, you got to drive. You can't get the bananas and the diapers and the report done and the IRS taken care of in the car on the freeway. You can't do that then. You're driving. So why not be here now, as Ram Dass says. Be here now. Here's some music. Put on a tape. Meditate right there. Don't close your eyes. But just, like, push it all out. All of that's going to get handled. But meantime, I'm going to enjoy this. My ride from my home to my office is 17 miles. I love those 17 miles. There's a million things to see in those 17 miles. I cannot write my books or get my speeches. I can't do any of that in that time. But I can enjoy all of that. I can be there with it. I can open the windows and I can let the wind blow on me and I can experience that and enjoy all of that. And when I get to where I'm going, if I've got to get the report done, I'm now prepared to do it. I'm not working on the report thinking about my taxes or getting the diapers or getting the bananas or whatever it may be. I'm here now in the moment. That's what meditating teaches you. Being here now in the moment. Quiet, joyful, peaceful. When you're there and you get your mind trained to do that, that isn't just like something you do for 15 minutes a day just to give you something to do for that 15 minutes. That carries over into everything that you do.
Line by Albert Einstein, when he was talking to his students about trying to solve mathematical problems and equations. He said, you can't ever solve a problem with the same mind that created it. It's what they call sometimes in management circles thinking outside of the dots or outside of the box, getting out of your comfort zone. Getting out of looking at things the way you've always looked at them and having a different kind of an awareness. I came across this quote not too long ago. Moving away the clouds does not make the sunshine. It merely reveals what was hidden all along. The sunshine, the sun is always there. And you don't make it shine by just taking things away. There's something inside all of us that is hidden. And it's the ability to, I call it rewriting our agreement with reality. It requires a new kind of awareness, a willingness, if you will, to see yourself as potentially capable of virtually anything. I've always loved the observation from the New Testament of Jesus, that even the least among you can do all that I have done and even greater things. That within each and every one of us there is this ability to be healers. There's this ability to be able to manifest and attract anything into our lives that we put our attention on. There's this ability to live at such a high level of consciousness that we can transcend our bodies. My internal wiring has always been one of whatever it is that I've got in my life as a problem, that I have to take responsibility for it, but I also have the capacity to be able to change it. And not only to change around what it is that is not working for me, but also to change around what I have been attracting into my life. I think it begins with this this whole idea of being inspired. I've always liked that word, inspired, inspiration, because its origin is in spirit. And then the opposite word is being informed. And so when you're in form, in the physical world, when you're in form, you get information, you get lots of information. And this is what we call the information age, right? So there's no shortage of information. They say that on a little chip the size of your thumbnail, we can put the names and addresses of everybody in the United States and Canada on a little chip the size of your thumbnail. That's really more information, I think, than we need. What we are doing is we are moving from the age of information to the age of inspiration, I believe. And as we move into the age of inspiration, where collectively mankind is beginning to have a collective capacity to be able to think thoughts which empower us rather than which weaken us, which, according to Hawkins' research, up until about 1985 or 1986, collectively, mankind's collective thoughts always produced that which weakens us. And now, in the last few years, we have moved above the level where man's collective consciousness is at least at a place where collectively we are empowering ourselves rather than using force. And as we move into the world of inspiration, we have to understand what that means. And Patanjali had a wonderful observation. I wrote about it in Wisdom of the Ages. He said, when you are inspired, that is, in spirit, and remember, it is in the world of spirit, it is in the world of thoughts where we change, where we go to the place where we create anything we want for ourselves in our lives. So that remembering here, the theme is that you can't solve any problem that you might have in your life with the same mind that created it. So you're moving into a place now called spirit. That which is seen hath not come from that which doth appear. We're moving into the world of the invisible now. When you are inspired, and think about the moments in your life when you've had the most inspiration, inspirado. You lose any touch of fatigue. I have gone and been inspired at moments in my life when I have written for almost 24 straight hours without stopping, without eating, without thinking about sleep. I just got into one of those modes, what we call a zone sometimes, where everything just flowed. When you are in that place, you transcend everything. And you don't worry about whether people are going to call you or not call you. You don't worry about your children. You don't worry about being sick. You don't think about the cold that you might have. You don't think about being tired and how much sleep you'll need. When you're inspired, you're in spirit. When you're in spirit, you're connected to your source. And now what you're doing is you're moving out of the mindset of inform or information, which is where all problems occur in the world of the physical, and you're shifting into the world of spirit.
As you listen more closely to your sacred self and transcend your ego, so too will the world ego be shifted away from power, control, and money, back to the basic virtues of higher awareness, back to peace, beauty,
love, purity, tolerance, patience, and compassion. This does not mean that the benefits of technology cannot be enjoyed. It means that the ego will not be the motivating force in our lives. What we truly are as a people is a force that craves peace and simplicity. We want that deeper awareness that comes with the sanity of the higher self. It is insane to continue believing that we are a collection of tribes, each with a separate identity and a special mission. It is insane to believe that anyone who does not fit into our particular tribal mentality is a potential enemy. We know that there is not a separate God for each of us, or even for each of our tribes. We know that there is a universal divine intelligence that flows through all of us, and in that sacred space within us, we are all one and the same. We know that the best within us is love, kindness, and compassion. Yet our egos, both individually and collectively, have campaigned long and hard to promote a false idea. How sane is it for people to be killing each other over disputes that ancient egos created long before we arrived? How sane is it for us to believe that some of us deserve to eat the food that God provides, and that others do not deserve it by virtue of their geographic location? How sane is it for us to pump up our youth with the philosophy of the free ride by leading them to believe that if they want something, they deserve it? How sane is it to show our children pictures of violence as entertainment and allow them to adopt the ego belief that it is human nature to hurt others as a way to defend a right to be special and separate? As our higher selves begin to triumph over ego in the daily decision-making of our lives, we will truly be making progress on the path of the sacred quest for all of humanity. You must banish all doubt about your ability to facilitate such a quest and begin to know that you are both the microcosm and the macrocosm. There is a universe within you, a unified field of all possibilities that you can reach as you become the compassionate witness. Be silent. Shut down the inner dialogue. Most important, transcend the false self that we call the ego. That is when the healing will begin to occur. The world ego is destined to be restrained as more individuals look within and consult the higher part of themselves. The doubts are vanishing, and the spiritual revolution is well underway. Moving toward an egoless world is not some far-fetched idea, any more than the disintegration of the Iron Curtain was a far-fetched idea. To those who heard such talk a few years before it happened, it did indeed seem absurd, but ideas, thoughts, and inner knowings are powerful instruments for the disintegration of the false self. One of the simplest and most powerful ways of doing this is taught by Eknath Eswaran. Writing in his book Meditation, he advises us to spend 30 minutes every morning in meditation repeating the prayer of St. Francis. In saying this prayer, we both transcend the ego and invite the sacred self to guide us through the day. I invite you to join me in this daily prayer as we share the path of the sacred quest. The prayer of St. Francis goes like this. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. It is in dying to self that we are born to eternal life. If you have the same knowing about your world, dramatic changes will take place as we collectively put to use the greatest force in the universe, the force of love.
When enough of us as a people begin to think in certain kinds of ways and we reach a critical mass, then all the rest of us begin to align that way. And the same kind of changes that take place in the history of humanity in one place take place all over the planet at the same time. And as people begin to think this way, that the spread is not a physical property, that it's an invisible property, that indeed we are all connected, but what we're connected with is not something that we can get a hold of. As Deepak always says, quantum physics is not only stranger than you think it is, it's stranger than you can think. Because indeed, what it does is it shatters the illusion of our separateness. So that if enough of us begin to believe that something is intolerable, And we really begin to act on that and think that way and create that, because collectively the same thing is true. The state of your life is nothing more than a reflection of your state of mind, and the state of the world is nothing more than a collective state of mind. It's a state of mind. We act collectively on what we think about.